I was born in that decade after the war when education was very strict and often very harsh. One of my strongest memories is after I'd just been at school a couple of months and the headmaster stood me up in front of the whole school and said, "Robyn Hewetson is left-handed. Robyn Hewetson is wrong. Don't be like Robyn Hewetson." Now, as disabilities go, I know left-handedness is not such a big one, but it was enough to make me feel different and wrong. In the years following that, teachers frequently strapped me when I tried to use my left hand. Often, I had it tied behind my back as they vigorously tried to turn me into somebody who used my auxiliary hand for everything. And so the main thing I learned is that there were a lot of things that I was no good at. And they exacerbated my life of fear, something I have often kept well hidden from people. Now, of course, in those days, we didn't know that left-handed people lived more in their right brains. They were often more intuitive and imaginative. And I found out as I got older that many of us are oral learners. And for me, I found out very young that what mattered to me most was words, especially spoken words. At the age of 9, I found Catherine Mansfield's journal in a public library, and I read it. The last page moved me so deeply. This was a woman, a New Zealand woman, a great artist who actually couldn't bear to be here, and she moved to the Northern Hemisphere to really find her consciousness soul being. She was living in a Gurdjieff colony in the south of France. She was only 34 years of age, and she was dying rapidly of tuberculosis. And she wrote these words down shortly before she died. It's said that she didn't speak again after this, so these words became her dying message, and they spoke so powerfully to me that I would like to share them with you now. Catherine Mansfield says, "Life is not simple. In spite of all we say about the mystery of life, when it comes down to it, we all want to treat it as if it were a child's tale. Now, Catherine, what do you mean by health? And what do you want it for?" Answer. By health, I mean the power to live a full, adult, living, breathing life in close contact with the things I love, the earth, the sea, the sun, all that we mean when we speak of the external world. I want to enter into it, to be a part of it, to live in it, to lose all that is superficial and acquired in me, and to become a conscious, direct human being. I want, by understanding myself, to understand others. I want to become all that I am capable of becoming so that I may be. And here I've stopped and waited, and it's no use. There's only one phrase that will do. A child of the sun. About helping others, about carrying a light and so forth. It seems false to say a single word. Let it be at that. A child of the sun. And then I want to work. At what? I want so to live that I work with my hands and my feeling and my brain. I want a small house, a garden, animals, books, pictures, music. And out of this, out of the expression of all this, I want to be writing, though I may write about cabmen, that's no matter. But warm, eager, living life, to be rooted in it, to learn from it, to desire to know, to think, to feel, to act. That is what I want, and nothing less, And that is what I must strive for. And when I say, I fear, do not let it disturb you, dearest hearts. We all fear when we are in waiting rooms, yet we must pass beyond them. And if the other can keep calm, that is all the help we can be to one another. And all this sounds very serious and strenuous, but now that I have wrestled with it, it is no longer so. I feel happy, deep down, all is well. Even at the age of 9, these words sounded to me like a clarion bell. I copied them down into a school journal and I carried them with me for years. It began a habit I have of writing down words that I love. I learned them by heart. It became like a prayer for me. And it amazed me that this New Zealand woman, who had died years and years before I was born, in her dying thoughts, which she had written down, somehow helped to explain me to myself. And she became my guide. I became a teacher. And it was here in Hastings that I found the first Steiner school in New Zealand. And I was overjoyed to find that this was an education that said the way to teach children well was to help them to be creative with their hands and their feeling and their brain. I left New Zealand. I went to England to do my Waldorf teacher training. And it was while I was doing that training that I found the London School of Speech Formation that worked out of these same principles, and I knew I had found my life's work. In time, I moved to Temple, New Hampshire in the United States, where I had my family. Now, it so happened that when my children were very young, I lost my husband. And I ended up working for a huge Fortune 500 company in the United States, where they celebrated these talents that I had and quickly put to use training people in sales and management and in business presentations. But what people mostly did not know is I still struggled with an enormous amount of fear. And I had a big lesson in that this year. I was invited to speak at the Callisto conference in Hawaii in February. That's a huge international conference, happens once every 4 years, and it combines some of the brightest medical minds in the world with really bright education principles. And it considers the dilemma of what children are facing in the classroom today. And I was one of the presenters. It was called Truth, Beauty, and Goodness, as some of the solutions that we could find. Now, it also so happened that my son, who has a very hectic professional life, had decided to take a few months off, and he was going professionally skydiving in Hawaii. Now, we'd sort of talked about this before, and I had always point blank refused. But I found myself thinking about him and really recognizing that for my son, skydiving, wingsuiting, flying, this was his great passion in life. And I thought, I'm his mother. I need to share it with him. And so I called him and I said, okay, well, if you're still in Hawaii when I get there in February, I'll do it. And he was thrilled. So this year, on Wednesday, the 21st of February, when the conference was over, I drove north to the Dillingham airfield to meet my son. We hadn't been together for over 3 years, and he had arranged everything before I got there. He had it all prepared before I arrived, and he greeted me so warmly and proudly introduced me to all his friends. The company was so impressed that the whole deal was going to be done for free, and he'd arranged for Christabel, one of his friends, to go with us and film it. So then I had to watch a bunch of videos. I had to sign hundreds of legal forms. And of course, I bought the t-shirt. As we walked towards the plane, Christabel said to me, "Are you nervous?" And I very innocently said, not yet, because I simply had not allowed myself to think about it. But as we walked towards that plane, the first thing I realized was there's no door on the plane. There's just a hole in the wall. We got onto the plane and we sat down, and my son clipped us up, and he began to tell me very excitedly what to expect. He said, look, when we get to 9,000 feet, I'm going to tighten those straps. And when we get up to 16,000 feet, you are going to have to go forward to that opening, put your feet over the edge, cross your hands over your chest, tuck your chin in, and I'll do the rest. Now, it was a glorious day. The sun was shining. It was warm and beautiful. But as that plane began to take off, terror took hold of me. All around me, those young people were talking and laughing. Meanwhile, I was absolutely sick with fear. I began to think, I'm scared to death. And then I thought, I am going to die of fright. I had never thought about those phrases before. Now they loomed really large in my soul. And I asked myself, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of crashing on the ground, broken bones? No, I wasn't. And I realized I am terrified of going out that door. I felt like I was losing my ability to breathe. All I could think of was, I am going to die of fright. And my son is going to jump with a dead mother strapped to him. And what good is that going to do our family life? And then suddenly Gwyl said to me, okay, Ma, let's go. And he stood up, and of course I had no choice. I had to stand up with him. I tell you, I was nearly dead. I had lost all my strength. I tried to hold on to the door, but he grabbed my hand, and 1 second, and we were out of there. That second is the most potent second of my life. I passed in one brief moment from absolutely mortal terror into joy, into peace. For me, the plane just simply disappeared. It took with it all the rushing air and the roaring noise, and there we were, in the air, soaring like an albatross above a world more full of wonder than I had ever dreamt. The air was warm. It was fragrant. I could smell flowers. Gwyl said to me, spread your arms, Ma. I barely could. I'd nearly died. I hadn't got much strength left. And we soared over that ocean, and he said to me, come on, Ma, let's look for whales. And as we glided over that north shore, over the beautiful ocean, I had another huge moment. I found myself thinking, Robyn, your fears are groundless. And we glided like a bird over the ocean, over the mountains, and gradually descended towards the airfield. And then Gwyl pulled the chute, and there's a moment where you stop gliding like a bird, and suddenly it's like you're sitting in a deck chair, and you get a completely different perspective of the world. And he said to me, okay, Ma, as we come in, you need to lift up your legs, and I'll do the rest. And he did. We came in so gently, I lifted up my legs. Gwyl took a couple of steps and sat down, and I fell into his arms, and I wept. And I just lay there, and all I wanted to do was look up at that sky, that beautiful blue sky. He said, come on, Ma, you've got to get up. I said, no, just let me lie here. I just want to look at the sky. He said, Ma, there are planes coming. Get up. So we got up and we went to the edge of the field where we hugged for a very long time. Later that evening, as we sat on Sunset Beach and ate fish tacos and watched the sun go down and the stars come out, I found myself remembering Catherine Mansfield's words again, especially that part where she says, And when I say, I fear, do not let it disturb you, dearest hearts. We all fear when we are in waiting rooms, yet we must pass beyond them. And if the other can keep calm, that is all the help we can be to one another. So, 50 plus years after I found those words and recognized them as a message for me, I found out something else. I realized that so much of what I'm afraid of in life is exactly this picture of being in a waiting room and being scared of taking the next step. But by doing this jump with my son, I had discovered something that helps me, that I need when I'm afraid, and that what my son had provided for me, that if there's somebody near me who can just keep calm, then all I have to do to face my fear is just jump.